What's up, boys? This is Contango coming at you from Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. And today I wanted to do a video about my Axis and Allies 1940 global alternate universe map and game that I made. So what I wanted to do was go over the differences between alternate universe and the normal out-of-box 1940 global game. There are a few rule differences, so I just wanted to kind of outline those, try to make it easy for anybody who's going to play the game either on AAA or otherwise, and hopefully give you just kind of a visual representation to help you kind of remember what the differences are. So I've got this laid out in two categories. So there's on the map here, there's red dice and black dice. So red dice are going to represent actual sort of rule changes, and the black dice are going to represent just more like situational changes. So let's start going over those. So the first rule change that I want to talk about is with respect to bombers. So in the out-of-box game, bombers defend, they have a defense value of 1. So they just function like normal units, so they defend at 1. In alternate universe, they don't have a defense value, and they defend like transports. So that means they're not going to get a roll during the battle, and they're going to have to be taken as casualties last. So in this particular example here, maybe Japan they've decided they're going to try to come up through here and take out that Anzac city, and since that's their only city, they're going to knock them out of the game. And so the US sees this happening, and they're going to spam out a bunch of bombers just to save that city. So that's not going to work in alternate universe because the bombers don't have a defense value. So that's kind of the purpose there. So that's the first one. Let's go on to number 2, which is over here. So in out of box, you're not allowed to fly planes over a neutral territory. So for example here, this pro-allied neutral number 5, if Germany wanted to fly these planes over there, in out-of-box they wouldn't be allowed to because they don't own that territory, and it's not friendly, and it's also not owned by an enemy. So you can fly over enemy territory, but neutral territories you can't. But for alternate universe, you're allowed to. So as long as they're not a pro-neutral, so for example, pro-axis number 4 here, since they're pro-axis, Germany isn't able to fly over them because they're friendly with that country, so they don't want to violate their airspace. But other neutrals like pro-allies, the neutral league, which is basically strict neutrals, but we'll come back to that later, and independent neutrals, since they aren't necessarily friendly with them, they're allowed to violate their airspace. So in our example here, these German planes could fly over top of that and then take out those British ships. And similarly, maybe these planes up here want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so they can also participate and fly over that territory. So that could be done at the same time as Germany was taking this out. They might attack that at the same time, or maybe they're not going to, they're just going to leave it, and those planes can still fly over that. But it's going to result, it's basically the same result as if Germany had done a failed attack on that territory. So at the end of that, that territory is going to, it was pro-allied, so it's going to be joining the allies at the end of that. And you can do that on combat move or non-combat move. So if this hadn't been taken out by Germany, these planes could still fly over a non-combat move. All right, so the third difference, in out-of-box, I'm sure you'll know, when you take out an enemy capital city, that's going to basically knock that nation out of the game. Well, they'll still be in the game if they have existing units, but they won't get an income anymore, and they won't be able to spend anymore. So there's no capital cities in alternate universe, so there's just cities. And so normally when you take out a capital, you're going to take the income the cash on hand from that country. But in alternate universe, since there's no capital city, that's not going to happen. So to replace that, we've got three things here. So if you take out a city, you're going to get $5 from the enemy. If you take out an industrial complex, either a minor or a major, you're going to get money for that as well. So three IPCs for a minor facility and 10 for a major, which is easy to remember because that's their production values. So similar to when you take out a capital, that money is going to come from the treasury of whatever nation you're attacking. And for alternate universe, that's only going to happen once. So if you were, for example, to take out the city, you're going to get your $5. And then if Russia were to take it back on the following turn, and then subsequently you took it from them again, you're not going to get that money a second time. It's only for the first time that that's taken. Also, I should mention that you're going to get both in some cases. So if you take out a city, and if, for example, Russia had a minor facility here, you'll get 8 IPCs total, 5 for the city and then 3 for the minor facility. So that's how that works. So the fourth rule change I want to talk about is with respect to France. So France is considered indefinitely neutral. So they start the game as neutral, and there isn't a particular timeline like there is for some nations where eventually they'll join the war for sure. But so in alternate universe, they're kind of indefinitely neutral until certain things happen. So if they got attacked, for example, that would bring them into the war. And also they have a political escalation, and that relates to the independent neutrals, which we'll come back to shortly. But basically, as independent neutrals get attacked, they escalate their political situation as the independent neutrals get attacked by the Axis, that is. So at the lowest level of escalation, France is only allowed to move 3 units on any given turn. So obviously, at that point, they're not in the war yet, so they don't have any combat moves. But on non-combat move, they're only allowed to move 3 units. And it doesn't matter what kind of unit, whether it's a naval ground unit or an air unit. So for example, let's say France is in their lowest level of escalation, and they're thinking, okay, I want to get these ships away from the Germans and the Italians, so I'm going to move them this way. And also I've got this tank down here. I want to move that up into this territory with the city to protect that. So that's going to be it for them. They're not going to be able to move any other units for that turn. So I'll just quick give you a shot of the French escalation levels there. If you want to take a look at that, you can pause it, or else find the rules. The summary sheet is available on the forums. So, like I said, they've got the escalation. In higher levels of escalation, they can move all their units like a normal neutral country would. All right, so the fifth rule change is we're talking about the independent neutrals now. So this game still has the pro-allied neutrals. So we got PA for pro-allieds. We've got PX for pro-axis. Then we've got NL means neutral league, which that's the same as the strict neutrals in the out-of-box game. So those are all still here, but now we've got the addition of all these yellow territories, which are independent neutrals. So independent neutrals are just like they sound. They're independent. They don't care about what's happening elsewhere. So they can be attacked by either side, and attacking one is not going to change their relationship with any of the rest of them. So for example here, let's say that Japan decides they're going to attack these 3 independent neutrals and take those out to get the extra money. That's not going to affect any of the other independent neutrals. Now it will affect, like we talked about, the French escalation. So Japan might want to think hard before they do that. If France sees me attacking independent neutrals, they might decide to join the war after a certain number of them. So But anyway, if Japan were to come in here, take these out, that's fine. They're going to get the income for that, and maybe they don't care because France is already in the war, or Germany wants to bring them in anyways, so they're going to go ahead and attack those. And the Allies likewise can attack them. You can read about how the escalation works, but essentially it's when the Axis have attacked more independent neutrals than the Allies have. That's when France starts to escalate. All right, so that was the 5th rule change. The 6th one is just with respect to kamikazes. So in the out-of-box game, Japan has 6 kamikaze tokens they can use in various sea zones. In alternate universe, there is no kamikazes, so I'm just going to go ahead and flip that over. That's why they're all flipped over here, so you don't have to worry about kamikazes. It doesn't exist for this game. So that's the rule changes. So we've got 6 of those. So now we're going to talk about, I guess I'll just call them situational differences, not really rule differences. So the first one here is just meaning the political situation. So, for example, Germany is going to get to decide when they go to war with Russia, same as in out-of-box. But there are a few differences there from out-of-box. So, like, for instance, Japan does not start the game at war with China in this. So there's a few differences there, but generally speaking, it's pretty similar to out-of-box. The second, I guess, situational change is just the national objectives, which, I mean, makes sense. The territories are all different, so the national objectives are going to have to be different. Thematically, they're kind of the same as the out-of-box game, but there's differences there, so obviously that's something that's changed. The third thing there is talking about, or representing, with France and China, when they're not at war, they have their income reduced. And so you can consider that as, for France, they're focusing on economic or non-military spending, and for China, maybe it's internal turmoil. So anyway, they're not spending their entire income, or not able to collect their entire income. So the income tracker may say one number, but they're going to collect less than that. It's about half, but you can see in the rules how much that is. So that's what number 3 is representing there. Number 4 is just representing the UK. So when you're talking about out-of-box, the UK is kind of spread out on both sides of the map. They're similarly spread out on this map, but in out-of-box, the income and the economy for the UK is separated. For alternate universe, it's not. So they're just one nation, the one income, and so you don't have to worry about having things separated like that. And so the 5th, I guess, situational difference is just the victory objectives, so, or victory conditions, I should say. And so with out-of-box, I mean, we all know the out-of-box victory conditions. In alternate universe, the conditions are based around all these cities that you see marked out here all over the map. So for the Axis to win, they need to hold 14 victory cities for a full turn. And for the Allies to win, they need to hold enough cities to keep the Axis below 8 cities. So if the Axis have less than 8 cities for a full turn, then the Allies win. And that is after turn 8. If you count them here, the Axis actually start the game with less than 8. They start with 6. So in the first 8 turns, the Allies will win if they can knock the Axis to under 6 cities for a full turn. So under 6 cities for a full turn between round 1 and round 8, and under 8 cities after round 8. So that's it. So we got about 6 rule changes, I would say, 5 kind of situational changes, and that's basically it. don't think there's anything else I want to add now. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to leave comments. If you see anything in the rules that I may have forgotten to mention on this, by all means put it in the comments. But I think that's it for now, so talk to you later.